Chopsticks. Once upon a time, long, long ago in Japan, a woman prayed that God would show her the difference between heaven and hell. She wanted to know whether there were fires in hell and whether the people in heaven sat around on clouds all day playing harps. Now she didn't fancy going to either place if that was all they had to offer. She prayed so hard that God decided to answer her prayer, and he sent an angel to give her a guided tour of both places. Angels are good like that. First she went to hell. It wasn't hot at all. In fact, it looked quite pleasant. There were long tables laden with food of all kinds, cooked meats, vegetables, fruit, delicious pies and exotic desserts. This can't be hell, she thought. Then she looked at the people. They were sitting some distance from the tables, and they were all miserable, emaciated, pale, angry. Each of them had chopsticks fastened to their hands, but the chopsticks were about 3 feet long, and no matter how hard they tried, the people just couldn't get the food in their mouths. They were growing with hunger and frustration and anger. "I've seen enough of this," said the woman. "Show me heaven." "May I see heaven now?" The angel took the woman to heaven. She didn't have far to go, it was just next door. And it was almost the same as hell. There were the same kind of tables, the same kind of food. And here too the people were sitting a little distance away from tables with 3 feet long chopsticks fastened to their hands. But these people seemed happy. They were rosy-cheeked and looked well fed. They were smiling and chatting merrily to each other. They couldn't put the food in their mouths either, but they discovered how to be fed and happy. They were feeding each other. In the story, heaven and hell appear exactly the same, and yet they are experienced oh so differently. In hell, all go hungry because everyone tries to feed themselves only. They are purely self-reliant. And yet in heaven, they attempt to feed one another, and they are therefore fed in abundance. To me, this is just as much about the relationship as the food going into one another's mouths. I believe we all possess an innate need to serve one another. That if we do not do this, part of our natural humanity withers away and dies off. By not serving one another, we starve our souls. I think one of the greatest delusions of the modern era is the myth of self-reliance. This idea that as individuals we have all that we need and that we don't need one another. Geoffrey Lockwood, in his meditation, "To ask is to give," claims that. One of the great blessings of travel is to be put in a position of asking help from others, to be genuinely needful of strangers. Our illusion of self-reliance evaporates as the unexpected and unfamiliar merge into vulnerability. We offer the gift of authentic need, the opportunity for deep trust. We express to another person the most humanizing cross-cultural phrase, "Please help me." In our society, self-sufficiency is heralded as a virtue, and chronic dependency on others can be degrading. But never being asked to help another person is isolating, even dehumanizing. In a culture that exalts autonomy, asking for help may be one of the greatest gifts we offer. So much of life has become a calculation of costs and benefits. To ask assistance is to create the opportunity for unconditional giving in a raw, spiritual defiance of economic rationality. We become mutually indebted without the expectation of repayment. Each person in the relationship becomes a giver and receiver. Each one becomes more human. Each one has something to be thankful for. There are several slightly different accounts in the Gospels of Jesus feeding crowds of people. Now there's a real danger of losing the meaning behind these tales by engaging in windy arguments about their factual accuracy. To get hung up on a debate as to whether or not Jesus could feed the thousands of people present with just a few fish and loaves is not really what the stories are about. Well, I don't think they are. To get hung up on the factual accuracy is to miss the whole point of the teaching behind the story. Mythological tales are not about fact, they are about revealing deeper universal truths. There is a line in one account from Mark's Gospel, chapter 8, verses 1 to 9, where we hear the words, "They ate and they were filled." They ate and they were filled. In this account, Jesus had spent 3 days with the people he feeds. He had not invited them to join him and therefore was certainly not obliged to feed them. I'm sure that the crowd were not expecting to be fed by the meagre amount that the disciples brought, which was meant for them only. But what happens? Well, Jesus recognizes the crowd's hunger and the fact that they have travelled a great distance to be with him. He expresses compassion for all of them. He asked the crowd to sit down and to share a meal with him. He then instructs the disciples to serve the people personally. The crowd eat and are filled, not because their bodies were filled to the brim, but because their hunger was met in the most important way possible. What occurs is a true human encounter between the disciples and the crowd. The people are served face to face and are therefore truly loved and cared for. They had not only been physically fed, they had been personally served and therefore their humanity recognised. Each individual's hunger mattered. We all thirst and hunger, even in our seemingly materially abundant lives. We cannot feed this hunger in isolation, in self-reliance. It is only fed in that relationship that occurs as we feed one another. This is fellowship to me. Fellowship is what occurs in the relationship between the two. In this relationship, in this space, we can know the love of God. We all hunger for purpose and for meaning. As Viktor Frankl pointed out, we are driven by a will to find meaning and purpose. I would go further and suggest that we're also driven to find companionship in our increasingly isolating culture. We need to serve one another or our souls will starve. I have discovered, and I keep on discovering, that our deepest pangs are not satisfied by the food that is laid on the table, but in the relationship that occurs as we feed one another and as we drink from one another's cup. I invite you now to be still with me. Quieten your mind. Connect to your body, to your breathing. Connect to that loving place at the core of your being. Be still within it. Give thanks for life, for this mortal life. This mortal life that is connected to the eternal spirit that permeates all life. Recall to your mind's eye those moments when you have been served eye to eye, face to face. Recall to your mind's eye those moments when you have served eye to eye, face to face. Remember those who have fed you and who you have fed. Refeel that interaction. Refeel that love. This is the spirit of life at work in human affairs. Bring these moments to your being, here, now. Commit them to your spirit so that you can become the change that you wish to see in the world. Know that you have a purpose for being here. Know that you are loved. Know that your purpose is to express this love in life. Know that your purpose is to live in such a way that your life will prove worth dying for by the love you leave behind. Amen.